something burns, it's combining with oxygen. The most common way for steel to combine with oxygen is rusting, which I guess in a sense is burning. It's just really, really slow. However, because steel wool is so fine, it has a lot of exposed sides. Like every single bit of it is just exposed to the air, about as much as is possible. And because of that, you can start off a chain reaction that actually makes the steel combine with oxygen much, much faster. Here's the basic idea. We've got a lot of steel wool, and we want to see what it takes to light it on fire and what happens when we do.
I'm going to be honest, it's really cool that this lights on fire. However, one of the funnest ways to actually get it to ignite doesn't involve fire at all.
I have here a 9-volt battery, and by using this 9-volt battery, we can actually touch to the steel. Since it's all interwoven and touching itself, it's going to complete the circuit. And it's so thin that it can't take the amount of juice coming out of this battery and can just ignite by touching it. Blowing on it adds even more oxygen than it already has flowing around it, and so it combines with that oxygen even quicker and just heats up faster. It just travels beautifully, and it's really cool to see how the heat travels through the tiny little fiber wires and just spread to each other. Anytime a little burning ember crosses another wire, that one catches too, and so you just have this very organic looking growth. We don't just have that one little bit, we have a lot of steel wool, so we've got a lot of things we want to try out with this. First, let's do some small scale tests. I've always heard that you need to use really fine grade steel wool. Steel wool comes in lots of different thicknesses of the individual wires. It's kind of like the grit of sandpaper. So we've got some fairly thick steel wool, and we've got the super fine steel wool. We want to see if there's a difference.
So this is our coarsest that we've got, and that's our fine.
Yeah, it's not the coarsest that they make.
No,
it does come coarser, but
just what we have today.
Yeah, I think you can probably see the difference there. This is, I mean, it's still very thin, but each individual strand is just so much thicker.
All right, so our coarse grit steel wool, 9-volt battery. Just
it creates the spark in the ember just a little, but it just doesn't.
I don't think it's enough heat for the
travel. I have 0, 0, 0, 0, which means that at some point they got to 0, and then they're like, wait, we can go finer, and they just started adding more zeros onto it.
More zeros. I have 2.
So grade 2 and grade quadruple aught, I think is how they call it. So it's yeah, it's definitely finer. So once again, battery, I'm just going to touch it to it, and last time that was all it took. And then I might blow on it a little to add some air, but it won't need it. Look at that. Like it's nothing. One more test that we want to do is to see what happens if we try and light it without fluffing it up at all. So this is about as condensed as it comes. We're going to see if this burns well too, or if the lack of oxygen really slows down the reaction. Burn for a little bit. There it goes. And you can actually see just a little bit of a dark spot where it's oxidized. So we've got the rest of it, and then there's this darker gray color right here. It's almost got a tint of blue to it. So this time I'm going to try and light it again, and then I'm going to blow on it and see if I can sort of force it to work by adding that much more oxygen.
All right, I'm curious. What if you fluff up just one little spot and have it try? Never mind! Holy cow! Oh, that's gorgeous.
That looks really cool.
It does.
I'm getting lightheaded.
There you go.
I'm going to bring in a backup.
So, in person, it's actually a little too bright to look at.
Yep, can't see.
All right, so our number 2 steel wool is not lighting with our 9-volt battery. We didn't think it would. However, I'm not giving up on it yet. So I'm actually going to go toss this in the fire that we've got going outside because it's cold. Let's see if we can just get it to light at all. We've got this as fluffed up as possible, and just in case we need to cheat a little bit, because I really want to see if we can get this to light. It works! Not great, and definitely not as well as the finer steel wool, but that burned right up. Let's go see what Nate's working on.
Alright, here I've got, I'm going to call this my steel wool sword. And airflow, as you've seen, increases how quickly it burns. So I'm going to try and touch this in several spots to get it ignited all over. And then I'm just going to start swinging it around and try and get some cool sparks out of it. And hopefully none of them land on and hurt me. Okay, I'm ready. Callie?
Yep.
Ah! Dinosaur! Oh, well, that didn't last amazingly long.
Outlast opponents. No.
Alright, so for this one we have got a ball of steel wool on the end of a copper cable. This is what a lot of people do for their long exposure videos and pictures. They look gorgeous. I want to try it myself.
Looks good on the pistols. Makes sense, right? Started.
With this blob of steel wool, we've got one more thing we want to try. This is methanol, and you've probably seen us do this trick a little bit before, but it's got some boric acid mixed in, which means it should burn green. So we're going to pour that all over this, and we're going to hopefully get something that's burning green and has sparks running through it. I bet it looks pretty neat.
Yeah! That looks evil.
Alright guys, we now have a small mountain of fluffed up steel wool.
Large mountain.
Well, large for steel wool mountains.
Nate's gonna light this up. He's gonna go around in a circle, try and get the bottom lit up. I will be providing oxygen. Now, as you saw, it takes a lot to actually set it on fire and not just make it spark, so I feel safe standing where I'm at. If anything goes wrong, we have our fire extinguishers. Worst case scenario, we leave the dome. That's just gorgeous. Yeah, maybe that will look better.
Oh, that's hot.
Wow, it's gone red hot.
Man, there's a lot of heat coming off of this too.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's where all of our heat was.
Guys, something exciting is coming very soon in this package. If you're not already on the list, then you might never get it. Click the link in the description below so you don't lose your chance. Guys, that's not all. You know, we've always got more for you. See, this box up here at the top will take you directly to our last video. You should go check that out. The other box is going to show you what YouTube thinks you should be watching next. If you hit this bomb here in the middle, you'll be subscribed to our channel. That way you're never going to miss out on a cool video. Don't forget to ring that bell so you get the notification about it. And we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then. Yeah, so, okay, you want to hear some real bull. Remember Krull? It was like from the 80s, right? And everybody like craps all over that film. It's a great movie. It was originally like supposed to be a Dungeons and Dragons movie. A lot of people don't know that. It was on I read it on forum. Anyway, it's a Dungeons and Dragons film, and they just like they lost the license or something, and they like filed the serial number off. And so that was going to be like a legit fantasy film based on Dungeons and Dragons in the middle of the Dungeons and Dragons like fervor of the early 80s. You know, they had the glaive. And then then he's like shooting the fire out of his hand. It was super cool.
Can we start?
Let's do this. So anyway,
Making the ballistic gelatin head.
Bill Duran from PunishedProps.com. Last time you cut off Jason's head and mounted it on a pike. What do you got for us this time?
Well, when we did that, we made a mold. This is a negative cavity. I've displayed a negative cavity in Jason's head.
Kill it!
We're gonna put a skull in it, and we're gonna fill it with Jello. Done. All done.
It's gonna be a great episode.
In the past, I have tried making ballistics gel, the sort of gelatin that you would use to test ammunition.
This is what forensics people do to see the penetrating power of
Yes.
various firearms, that kind of stuff.
I've done that before in a smaller scale, in a mask mold, and it worked. So I thought, hey, let's take it to the next level. Do the same thing with his head, specifically with Jason. This is what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I was in the shower.
Yep. I want all of the satisfaction of shooting Jason in the face
Right.
without going to jail.
Yes. But to take it to the next level, I got a skull,
Okay.
and I prepared it.
What is this?
Fiberglass, I think. At least it smelled like fiberglass when I drilled holes in it.
Oh my God! You know the. Of course you would. Why
I do.
wouldn't you?
This is going to go in the mold. We're going to mix up some ballistics gel, fill up the mold, and hopefully there will be this skull encased in a copy of your face.
Oh, so we're gonna pour the ballistics gel into here and then insert the skull to give it a skeleton.
Yes. So the first thing is going to be to put this in the mold before we close it up because it won't fit in the neck hole.
Okay, so we gotta open it up.
Peel that guy out
We'll hold the alien autopsy open.
like that. There we go.
Face hugger is coming.
And it does fit just so, probably with about a ½ inch all the way around.
So how are we going to make sure that it sort of floats in the right spot? Because
You're
right
gonna
now it's just-
hold it.
You're going to hold it in the refrigerator
Overnight.
yeah. So this gets clamshelled back into the rigid. You can let go of that.
Okay.
We're going to have to position it. There's a big strip of tape right there, Jason. You grab that for me. Just wrap that around here to keep it shut.
That's good.
Super
Good.
great.
You run that right on there. So,
Oh, it's got a tape to itself.
Yeah, tape.
Oh,
To the tape.
Okay.
Tape don't stick to Vaseline.
I didn't think this would be the hardest part. It's going to be a lot of liquid weight in there. We want to make sure it's fairly secure.
Okay.
I'm pushing the seam back together.
Okay, and that was the zigzag
Yeah.
that threads back together so that you don't get a big ugly seam on the back.
So now the trick is positioning the skull so that it's not touching any of the sides.
And if we do it exactly right, it will be roughly in the middle. I feel like the skull's going to be, your face will be looking one way, your skull's going to be looking slightly off.
just a little bit, which I actually do have that disorder.
Oh, so that's what happened.
Yeah. This is the front. This is the back. I made this piece of wood to hold it there.
Okay.
So that when I can't see down in there, I'll know which way is frontward.
Okay.
Or at least straightward. So,
But we got to fill it with the stuff first and then shim it.
yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. I was going to do it a different way, but that's better.
Hey, well then
We're
let's so we got to make the
We're going to
stuff, right?
fill it with the gelatin, and then we can position it, and then my idea is that this will hold it kind of in place, and we'll hot glue it there.
Yeah. All right, that works.
So,
Oh, you can hot glue all around everything.
yeah. Cool. So let's go mix up some ballistics gelatin.
Do we do that here or where?
We're going to do that in the kitchen.
Oh, yes, we have a kitchen now.
Walt, Jesse, you ready to cook?
Let's cook it.
Okay, so to be clear, real ballistics gel is used to exactly mimic human flesh. We're going to do an easier approximation,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
We know there's not real ballistics gel. Close enough for us.
Close enough. It's really easy and fast and cheap, too. It's like $10 worth of gelatin and water. That's it. I'm glad that opened. We need water, and we're going to go with about 4 liters, which is
The capacity of a human head.
there you go. So could you please put 4 liters of cold, make sure it's cold water in the bucket.
And this is 1 pound of gelatin
1 pound.
of Knox unflavored gelatin.
Straight, the best Amazon has to offer.
So when I made the fake tongues for this ear through tongue trick, I used hard bloom gelatin, which is a huge pain in the butt because you got to boil it at the right consistency. You got to keep it moving and blending. It gets air bubbles that get locked in. I'll be really interested to see how much easier this version is.
Here's a stirring stick. It's okay if you get your hand wet, but
Oh,
you're gonna stir.
Stirring stick, not a tasting stick.
Got it, yeah. And we're gonna slowly add a little bit at a time, and you're gonna mix it in. What I've been told is that stirring it cold means you will not get as many clumps or bubbles.
Do I need to stir it faster, at this pace,
You're doing just
slower?
perfect.
Do I need to juke a little bit?
Yes, but please show us what juking looks like. Okay, that's some.
It's different settings.
I can tell you practice.
You're the human blender.
Yeah, different settings.
We're gonna keep doing this. Eventually, it'll start to set up and kind of feel a little bit like applesauce.
Appetizing.
Yeah, you actually don't want those bubbles.
It's
Jason.
okay though.
Oh, okay. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because eventually, I'm thinking of the hard bloom gelatin, those bubbles will actually freeze into the eventually dried, cooled mass.
Yeah.
I found that people prefer not to have bubbles so you can see through the gel, so you can see where bullets went.
So you may want to just sort of break up those clumps, agitate them a little bit, because the two enemies are clumps and bubbles.
Yeah, that was one of Eddie Murphy's worst films.
You could double your stirring power, sir.
I'm gonna Wolverine this.
Oh, yeah. I think you're the only one who can pull off a Wolverine, Doran.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's got the tasting stick.
What? Don't sully the tasting stick. I put that in my mouth.
Is there still honey on that?
Probably.
There is. There's definitely honey.
Do it, dude. And put it in your mouth.
I'll use that to get the clumps out. And I'm not afraid to get it really put a ton of gelatin in there. The test that I did felt really thick,
Yeah.
but the final product was awesome.
Good.
Oh, yeah?
Good.
It was much more durable than I thought it would.
So you were thinking at first that it was going to be too much gelatin?
Yes.
Here, may I?
Yeah, go for it.
Here, this was my technique on making the tongues. It's just
Oh.
the lightest dusting. Dude, we're getting there. We're almost there.
Yeah,
You got
it
it?
smells so bad.
I think your technique definitely results in fewer clumps. Okay, cool. Why don't we try and strain some of those clumps out? So we can just sort of get them out of there.
Okay.
They're fairly big. They're pretty easy to find.
It looks so gross.
It'll actually be a lot smoother once we heat it up a little bit. All right, to heat it, instead of putting it, you can throw all that away, Jason. We don't need any of that.
Oh,
That's really gross.
Wait, you gross.
It's the grossest Wolverine of all time.
This is Logan 2 when he's even older. This is
He's got 4 for some reason. I'm the best there is at what I do. What I do is really sticky.
What I do is stir gelatin. So instead of heating it with like a stove, we can just use this plastic bucket. I'm gonna plug the sink. Hot water will warm up our mixture enough
Okay.
that it'll turn back into kind of a liquid, and then we can pour it in the head.
Got it.
Will that help take care of any of the chunks? Like maybe they'll dissolve in the
should,
heat?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is wild. You can see already how it's thinner at the edges
Yeah.
and more viscous in the middle. So you do want to keep it spinning around.
Yeah.
So the whole thing gets nice and clear like that.
So this will take a little time, just because it's a very gentle heat to work the heat into this cold.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
still quite cold.
This may be 110 degrees or so.
Yeah, but I can feel the heat through the side of it.
Yeah, it's very applesaucey.
At what point do we know we're ready?
It will turn it back into a liquid. It will be completely liquid.
Oh, okay. And then we're going to pour it back into the mold.
Yeah, I will say, when I did it, I had a metal pan. That was
transfers
really, really
a
fast.
lot faster, yeah.
I did first try it in a Pyrex thing. And
It didn't work?
Not
So you're
at
saying insulating things not
all.
so
Yeah,
good.
not as good. Yeah,
plastic
conducting.
bucket,
Yeah,
yeah.
conducting is what we want.
Do you want me to get the torch and just heat up the water?
If you think that would be fun, then
No,
yeah.
I think that's a terrible idea.
Is that doing anything yet?
I mean, it's making the water hotter.
Probably.
Probably not very well. So we're gonna just pour in as much as we can in the pot.
Oh,
No,
that's
no,
good.
no, it's good. It's perfect.
Okay.
All right, now stir.
You can't go rough when you're on a floating boat of gelatin. Whatever floats your boat. I'll tell you what floats my boat is slow, sensual stirring. Hi, it's me, Gelatinous Bass. And I'm here for that gelatinous. Don't give me no sass. I'm eating some bass.
I love it when you're on to something And then it's like, you know what? I don't really have anything, so I'm just gonna rhyme words.
That's my trick.
That's your trick. I'm on to you.
You busted my algorithm, man.
Brian doesn't know where he's going with the joke. He's been rhyming words for 5 minutes now.
Oh, look at that. That is...
What is that? What's happening?
That's called clear. It's time. Remember you wondered when it would be time?
Not yet. It's almost there.
It's getting close. Skim? A little skimmage? Yeah.
I love that we get a professional prop maker in here so we can bring him down to our
I love that it clearly belongs with... He's one of us. I think we're good.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
definitely...
that's plenty clear.
That looks
I think
about
we can
like
see
when I
through
had it when I did my...
Okay, so now, do we want to put it back in the bucket so that it's easy to pour with the nozzle on there?
Yes, let's do that.
Good call.
Yeah, that would be difficult to pour. Head is in the sink.
Okay.
We're gonna fill it up with that and then position this. And we have time to position this.
Okay,
No rush. So
great.
all we have to do is slowly and carefully
Okay.
pour that in the neck hole.
You got it?
Boy, that's a real phrase that was just spoken.
I just hope it doesn't start leaking.
Oh, please don't leak.
How often does that happen when you've got a mold and then everything just leaks out? Is that like a common problem?
Usually the first time you make a mold, that's when you find out if there are any issues.
So I guess we would have spotted it when we put the expanding foam in there.
Maybe the expanding foam is such a high viscosity though, it doesn't want to sneak out through tiny cracks.
Yeah.
This stuff is really low viscosity compared
I
to...
think we're good.
Yeah.
Oh.
So basically, we know which way is straight based on my lines there. It's touching now, and we want to raise it not very far.
A little less than an inch.
Yeah. So this goes over.
All the way down. And then you raised it an inch.
And it is touching, and then I'm going to raise it.
Okay.
And
Hot
hot
glue?
glue. And that is good. We'll let that set up, and it can go in the fridge.
How do we make sure that this doesn't twist in our picking it up and maneuvering it? Should I hot glue this part too?
Go for it. All the hot glue. I brought 3 sticks.
So now we've got something locking it in on the height and locking it in on the, would that be torque? Left, right, twist? On the height and the twist?
Yaw.
Roll.
Telemetry.
We're sciencey.
Yeah. The viewers, they love it.
So
when
last
we
thing
get
you need-
sciencey.
So here, I'll
So that
go
it can
clean this
stay
bucket.
upright.
You guys make sure no gnomes steal that.
Okay. We want it in the bucket so it stays upright in the fridge.
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of practice putting heads in refrigerators. So.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
The sacrificial head and place it inside the ceremonial bucket. Here,
Man.
hold these two sides because I can't fit my hands in
If
them.
I had a nickel.
Oh, great. So now it's balanced on there?
Yeah.
Great.
And then that goes in the fridge.
Dude,
We have a tiny fridge.
tell me it fits. Does it fit?
It fits.
It fits.
It fits!
Barely.
Tell me it closes.